Welcome on in, you guys. I could not be more excited for this conversation today, for this reunion to one of the world's greatest thought leaders and mentors that have been in my life. We've been able to work together for, off and on in 3 different projects. And this project, I can tell you that I hope by the end of this conversation, you're just as fired up as I am, because I believe today, Blake Mallen, the gentleman that I'm going to share with you guys, he's been, he's the reason why I started in the industry over 11 years ago. He had the first, $1 billion, arguably one of the fastest growing companies. And that is what drew me to him back then. But it was also who he is as a person. He's an incredible father, 2 little ones, 4 and 7. He's an incredible philanthropist, gives back to the community. And I've been able to witness that as an entrepreneur. And so, Blake Mallen, it's just a privilege to have you on today. I know now we're talking and you are the president of Pruvit, and I could not be more grateful and excited to this project that we're working on together, but would love to have you share with everyone why, just a little bit about your background and how you got into network marketing and into this industry, just so they could get to know you personally.
I love it. Well, I love your energy, Jen, and I'm already smiling and have been looking forward to this conversation. And I know you and I have had a lot of dialogue recently over the last couple months. And I just want to say I appreciate the kind words, but more so I appreciate who you are as a leader, who you are as a person. And I'm just super excited to be reunited, realigned. I know we've done some awesome things in the past, but I know none of that will come even close to what we're about to do together. So excited about the future for sure, and excited about today's conversation. And thanks for everybody that is plugging in, whether you're watching this or you're listening to it on the podcast platforms. I hope today's conversation informs. I hope today's conversation inspires. And, I hope if Jen and I both do our jobs okay, we try to transfer to you some of the excitement and the enthusiasm that really we're feeling right now. But Jen, anyway, to answer your question, I guess I'll start with personal. So I'll assume that I'm meeting many of you guys for the very first time. Look forward to connecting on a personal level. I'm out here in Southern California. I'm a SoCal native, born and raised. Not an entrepreneurial upbringing. A lot of people assume I came from some business background or business pedigree. Quite the opposite. Both my parents were career public service. So my mom was a career educator, teacher, counselor, and principal, and my dad career law enforcement. So for those of you guys paying attention, yes, I grew up with a principal and a cop as parents. So that gives you some insight into my household. You can feel my pain, but very much, followed the traditional script, and still reside here in Southern California, and live in Pacific Palisades, which is a nice little fun bubble kind of outside Santa Monica, and in between Malibu. And Jen, as you know my family well. So this year I'll be celebrating, Karis and I celebrating 10 years together, married, 24 years together, which is kind of crazy. And 2 littles. So my son Grayson is 7. He's a first grader out here. My daughter's 84 years old. So just a fun season of life right now. Loving every minute of it. Super excited about everything we have going professionally. So it's following a traditional script, and until I got introduced to this crazy industry, for those of you guys that are looking at it for the very first time, I'll warn you up front. Once you get it and understand it, it like kind of makes you unemployable for anything else. Like once it gets inside of you, like it just has such an awesome impact on my life. I've seen it have such an awesome impact on literally hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs across the world. Ever since that introduction, it's all I've ever done for the last 24 years. And I know you and I have crossed paths a couple different times through that period. And I value and respect, Jen, everything you've done as a leader. I know you've been a master partner for obviously one of the brands that I helped co-create, and I know you've done some amazing things in the channel, and you're one of the good ones out there, always leading with your value system. And I'm excited to be working alongside with you for sure.
I am so excited. So Blake, you have been a leader in all of these, and tell me about why Pruvit, why the pivot? Because I know one of the companies, how that story, how did this all mesh together? And now I know that's why we're realigning, but just if you would mind sharing with our guests, a lot of us have seen us work together on previous projects, and then where we are today.
Yeah. So obviously, I think to understand where we are today and kind of to answer your question, why Pruvit, it's probably worth just a short version of the backstory. I'm one to be future focused. I don't spend a lot of time looking backward, but I think there's a couple points of my journey that's relevant. So short version is this is all I've ever done in my adult life since I was 19 years old. So I'll be over 23 years now in and around, whether you call it the direct selling space, I call it community-based marketing, all sides of the fence. So first kind of, part of my journey in the field as a top producing earner, most of the time on the founder ownership side. So founded and created my own brand in the space, also on the investor side. And, I do sit in a lot of the forums, the CEO masterminds on the channel. So, now today I definitely am plugged into not just what we're doing with Pruvit here today, but really what's going on within the entire direct selling channel. And, I think the relevant parts of my story was that time where I spent really as a founder owner of a brand in the health and wellness space. First 5 years of growing that company was just like super humble beginnings, scrappy startup, but built it to a point where it was a decent size a company. And, we brought aboard a large, actually global $1 billion public company, partner. And this was Jen way back, and you remember this time because you came kind of, introduced to us shortly after, but this was like 2008, when we were kind of finalizing that partnership. And it was actually right when the 2008, 2009, if you guys remember, that economic collapse, like the whole Lehman Brothers, right? Not to bring back pain points for many of us. But it was that season that like, it literally demolished what we had spent 5 years building. So 5 years building something up. And then within 90 days, end of 2008, 2009, we were almost out of business, on the brink of bankruptcy, like literally 1 month away from bankruptcy. And I remember asking one question that I say today because it's a question that I find myself having a lot of conversations with Brian, our Pruvit CEO, a lot of thought leaders in the space. And the question back then was like, how do we reinvent ourselves for a recessionary season? And Jen, I don't want to go into all the backstory, but let's just say we figured out the right equation, the right message, the right model. A lot of the things that are commonplace today in the channel were things actually that my team and I innovated, a long while back during that period, but it was all going into a recessionary season. So I say that just because some of the macro trends of where we were back then, flash forward to where we are today and some of the narrative and conversation, it feels like a very similar time. And we did that through transformation. So I was one of the pioneers of challenge marketing. What I mean by that is using a challenge-based conversation to bring a product to the market. Today, it sounds funny because like so many brands have this challenge, that challenge. It's almost like a mainstay strategy today, but it wasn't back then. We were kind of the innovators, the originators. And it was the right idea, the right time. And Jen, you kind of said the story. We did, about $1.5 billion in revenue in about a 36-month period. And ended up being over $2 billion in revenue, with that brand. And we did it all through transformation. So know that space very, very well. I'll save you the next chapter of that story where the meteoric downfall was just as fast as the meteoric rise. But it was a very fun creation phase and an awesome experience on a momentum phase. A lot of lessons, right? They came with wounds and scars and just not just tough times, but times when you're going through, they end up teaching you and giving you a sort of perspective and experience that proves to be invaluable when you're on the other side. And long story short, after we ended up selling our company and the brand got demolished, we ended up buying that company back and rebuilding the brand in Europe. So spent a lot of time in my career building Europe. And Jen, to answer your question, that's actually what found my way to Pruvit. So I started having conversation with the founders of Pruvit, both Brian, obviously the visionary, the co-founder, our CEO, the one that is really on the front and center of kind of the mission and the purpose and the vision and the strategy. But also his back end silent operational partner, Terry, at that time, Jen, and the true story was we were just peers in the space, met each other at a lot of the direct selling events, saw each other on stage, right? Respected each other's, kind of background, and ended up just reaching out as peers initially because I heard what they were doing in product development and the pace of innovation that they were able to create new technologies. And I went there just wanting to learn and said, maybe we could do something for, at the time, my company and my brand. So that was the intention when we started the conversation. And it was one of those things when, I don't know if you guys can relate to this. We all meet new people every day. Most people you meet, you never remember. You don't even remember their name 5 minutes after they may give it to you. And that's true for all of us. But then there's some people in your life that you meet, and like those are your people. Like those people become your people, and they become relationships for like the rest of your life. It's just a fascinating thing. And both my conversations with Brian and Terry, they were that. I first aligned on the philosophy, a perspective of where they saw this industry going, having been around long enough to recognize the highs and the lows, the good, the bad, but the vision to create a transcending brand, something that wasn't just a good community-based marketing company, but a massive lifestyle brand and community. I respected the values. Jen, you and I align on this. We're both values-driven leaders. And one of the things I love about you, and I know you and I share this similarity, like we have similar value systems. We lead with our values. I've considered myself always in that vein. And I saw, it wasn't what they said, it was what I saw, like mad respect for their entrepreneurship accolades, like some of the most brilliant entrepreneurs I've ever worked with, gifted, right, on all levels, almost savant-like in certain aspects. And I've worked with some amazing entrepreneurs, so I valued their entrepreneurial acumen. But then when I saw that, like, they never missed one of their kids' games. Terry has 4 kids, never misses his games, coaches all of them. Brian has 2 young boys, right? Brylan and Brixton, like they are a priority. The way I saw them interact as dads, as husbands, as partners, as people, that hit more to me than even just the business side. So for me, it started with the people, right? Both the philosophy and the values. And then it got to the business side of my mind, which really became more of a understanding this whole ketone thing. And Jen, I'll ask you, I actually never asked you this question. Like, did you understand ketones? Because I didn't. I will admit, like, I'd been in the nutrition space for 15 years. I built brands that done billions of dollars. I did not understand the difference between like keto, the diet, ketones, ketosis. It was all jargon to me when I first introduced these guys. Before our conversation, did you understand like the difference? I'm just curious.
I just didn't understand the way to make it work for me, because I could understand you had this drink and I was like, okay, you open it up and it helps me do what exactly. But now, and I know we're going to continue on to understand fasting with it, but Blake, I didn't understand ketones and the way in which they signal your brain to be in fat burning instead of sugar burning. And so that has been revolutionary to me, knowing now what I know about it. So yeah,
I know it's funny. And I'm with you on that. And I think you know more and knew more before we talked than even I did when I first found Pruvit and met Brian and Terry. But I didn't get it. I knew people that had done the keto diet, and we all know people that have tried the diet, and the ones that can stick with it, they rant and rave and they get all these amazing benefits. But most people's story is like, oh, I just couldn't stick with it. It's like hard, you have to be super disciplined to be able to stick with that type of formula. If you can, great, all power to you. But I didn't understand that, like, the reason people do the diet or the reason people fast, right, or this intermittent fasting conversation is to create ketones. So ketones, and I don't want to go into a whole product science pitch. That's not me, guys, but like this was fascinating to me. And it's part of my story of what turned the light on for me. Is understanding
you're not that guy, and yet you light up every time you do this. So we have to hear from you, like, what is it? Because you do see. So
because it's fascinating. So guys, ketones, when you do the diet or you do a fasting or intermittent fasting, your body actually makes ketones. It's a natural signaling molecule in your body. So it's natural. And what that signaling molecule does is it tells your body to flip the fuel source. So literally it says, hey, body, stop using sugar, which is what most of us are using as fuel because of the nature of our diet and lifestyle today, right? And it says, let's start using fat as fuel, as an energy source. So ketone is the thing that flips the switch. It's the key, right? That opens the door to convert what most people are burning as sugar burners into fat burners. Now, the rabbit hole goes deep on this one because then you start to realize, well, fat is actually a better fuel source. Like you do any sort of digging, you listen to the science, right? You look at the studies, it's a better fuel source. It is a more clean, optimum fuel source. It's like the equivalent of running a diesel engine for the old school truck and, you know, the Teslas everybody's driving today, right? It's a cleaner energy. It's a superior energy. It's like shifting to that energy, but the way your body operates. And most people get attracted to it because they hear fat as fuel and they instantly jump to fat loss, which there's a lot of obvious fat loss benefits when your body is burning your fat as a fuel source. And that's what people crave and want. But Jen, like with your story too, it's way more than that. It actually, for most people that understand it, it's more about things like your brain, your mood, right? Your cognition, making the fog go away, enhancing mental clarity. Matter of fact, prior to really Pruvit bringing this to the world, a lot of people like Navy SEALs were doing studies on ketones for like endurance and performance as just a better, longer lasting, more enduring energy source. So there's all this stuff. And it's one of those things where like the more you dig down the hole and you listen to the doctors, you're like, wow, like this is crazy. So for me, Jen, I once I understood that, I had a conversation with Brian. I'm like, this is not a product. Like this is a category. And there's a big difference between a product, one of many, and a category, one of one. And this is, Jen, where I got excited about the vision. And this is where what really, really got me looking at Brian and his partners saying these guys are brilliant, is they protected that ingredient. They're the only ones that have the all natural bioidentical ketone, the exact same ketone your body makes naturally, that they were able to replicate and put in formulas that taste good and are affordable to the masses, that when you drink it, your body doesn't know the difference if it made it or you drank it. All your body sees is the ketone and it flips the switch. And now you're burning fat as fuel. You literally have the ultimate biohack, right? You are in a nutritional ketosis in under 59 minutes through a drink, not a diet. And that right there, I was like, that's insane, right? The only all natural bioidentical. And they patented it every which way. You know, there's over a dozen patents, most of them in use right now, protecting the formula. When I say it is 101, when this conversation was unfolding, Brian and the scientists that figured it out, it didn't exist. So out of necessity, they had to build their own manufacturing facility, a mecca now out in Texas, because you couldn't go buy it. So what started out a necessity is now literally the largest manufacturing facility in the world for exogenous, fancy word for external ketones. So Jen, that I know I'm kind of getting into the geeky side, but like I'm going back to me as the entrepreneur. I fell in love with the philosophy and the values, and the people. But then I said, this is a category that was protected. And I came from my reference of doing a company that did a couple billion in sales off a protein shake. There was nothing special about, like it tasted great. People had results, but there was nothing different or unique or special. And it was something that as we became successful, everybody copied and created their own version. So I valued something that was its own category, super protected, one of one, and that's real. Like, I mean, energy is life. Like energy is life. You give somebody a better energy source, you're giving them more life. So I aligned with that on a business level. And then lastly, and this is the final box that kind of checked in my brain, was when I met Beyond Brian and his partners and really got introduced to the Pruvit community at the time. And I know everybody says this, but I've been around long enough to know what's truth and how you feel. And the culture was just, the community was just something special, you know, and it's continued to evolve into something that's just truly different. It's something that, you know, there's no judgment, there's no ego. There's no entitlement, none of the stuff that sometimes comes along with people making a lot of money in this channel. It's really something where people can show up as they are, right? Be heard, be seen. And by showing up, you can grow and become who you're meant to be. So I guess long-winded answer to your question, that's kind of some of the backstory, but I think it's worth knowing my references, only because that gives me a little bit of an interesting lens, I guess, or a perspective. And those were the things that when I met Brian as partners in the community, decided to say, I want to do this. So ended up, partnering with the company. They acquired my brand, stepped into the president role. I've been here 3 years now. Love working alongside Brian as partners of the community. Love what we have done over the last couple years. It's been an amazing experience so far. And I'm more excited today about what's aligning and where we're going than all the dots that connected, a couple years ago that brought me here. But that's kind of some of my backstory and kind of what I guess how I ended up here. And I know you've had some great results on the product already, and you've kind of seen some of the same things on the culture and the community as you were looking under the hood.
I have. Well, first, I just want to acknowledge you. It is very rare that an entrepreneur can do what you've done and come back smiling and truly now be in the place where you're in this growth phase and you have a whole new vision for what is to come. And I feel it in you. When we met a couple months ago and you reached out and, I wasn't fired up about much and you were like, well, let's have a conversation. And I can tell you that I haven't stopped being excited from that walk that we went on, because this product, when I took it home that day, in fact, I took it the day from your house, and I was like, my brain actually by the time I felt like my brain stopped being fuzzy and foggy. And I'm like, really? Is this just like, and it helped, because I was in a place where my brain wasn't, after my dad passed away, I wasn't able to focus. I have 2 boys that are busy and I just was not focusing the way as an entrepreneur I wanted to. And I can tell you that was what I noticed immediately. But then I know we're going to go into what, this new passion that you have and what we're launching here together with intermittent fasting using ketones. The light bulb went on to me as like, how do I use this correctly to not only help my brain function, but to actually then go into weight loss and all the key benefits of digestion and sleep and health that the ketones have, but using intermittent fasting. And so I haven't been, I just want to tell you, Blake, you're not only an incredible entrepreneur, congratulations on where you're at, but just, I'm excited about where we're bringing this partnership to now.
I love it. I think, you and I are probably going to be talking about that hike for years. It is just weird, right? Because we've been connected, and I know you've done very, very well in the channel and are obviously a leader people look up to and learn from. And you're someone that leads with your heart, and that's why people follow. And I know you're someone that lifts other people up. So it's like, you weren't looking and you didn't need anything. You were already doing well with what you were doing. But I think all of us can relate, like, there's a difference between doing well on the path you're on and really loving the path you're on. And if you're doing well, even if it's like dollars coming in, but you're not waking up with joy or real enthusiasm, it's not filling your cup. Like you don't have the glow, you don't have the light, you don't have the energy. It's, I don't think I'm weird in saying it's something you can feel. Right. And, I just know for you, the energy about you over the last couple of months has been awesome to watch you light up, because I know when you're lit up, you're able to move mountains, right, and pass that light to others. So it's been super cool. So to answer your question, to me, and I don't know, maybe it's an age thing, right? I'm starting to get a little more wisdom, a little more gray hairs, a little more scars, and the older I get, the more I don't question feeling. So like if I get a feeling, I don't talk myself out of why it's there. I just it's there for a reason and I act on it. And there was a feeling that said, hey, I got to reach out to Jen and let's just connect. And it had to do with just alignment, dots connecting, dominoes that I was seeing line up. And there's a lot of them, but I think to keep this conversation shorter, I think there's maybe 3 really big ones. First being this whole intermittent fasting conversation you've alluded to. And I'll start by saying intermittent fasting is also one of those things like ketones and ketosis that like people have heard about, but don't fully understand. Total side note, guys, that gap is generally when this style of marketing does the best. when there's a mainstream of awareness about something, but a gap of understanding creates an opportunity to educate. And that opportunity to educate is what community-based marketing thrives on, because we are the educators. So ketones was that and still is that, right? Like keto, it's the diet. I don't really get it. So the opportunity to educate is that category. But intermittent fasting is also that, because when most people hear intermittent fasting, all they hear is the word fasting, and they instantly assume fasting means not eating. And we all immediately associate like that sucks, right? I don't want to not eat, right? We associate pain to it. And intermittent fasting is not eating. Intermittent fasting for most people, it just means we're eating in a certain timed window every single day. A lot of people follow an 8-hour eating window, meaning we're going to eat same amount of meals, right? Same amount of calories, same amount of protein. You're going to eat just like you're eating food. You're not depriving yourself. You're just doing it in like an 8-hour eating window, right? You know, some people do it in a 7-hour, 6-hour eating window. So, you know, if you skip breakfast and you eat lunch at noon, well, you know, then you have it until 8 o'clock, right? An 8-hour eating window, which means you're not, right, consuming food in most cases in those other hours, right? So if it's an 8-hour, 24 hours in a day, right? So, you know, that would be a 16-hour, right, window that you're not eating. So that's intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is just the concept of throughout the day, there's little windows where your body goes into a fasted state. So that's intermittent fasting for those of you guys that aren't familiar. But my point in all of this is intermittent fasting has actually been a part of the Pruvit conversation for 7 years. And Jen, the reason is really twofold. So number one, the reason people intermittent fast is when your body gets over a certain amount of hours fasting, you start to create ketones. So you go into ketosis. So you go into what's called an endogenous, fancy word for like internal, okay? You know, ketones your body made. So you actually elicit ketosis when you are intermittent fasting. And that's a reason for a lot of the benefits. There's a ton of other benefits that come from these intermittent fasting conversation, just if you do that, right? So the concept is the ketone conversation has always been a part of Pruvit because we're a ketone company. So we talk about endogenous, we talk exogenous, and so forth. But the other benefit when you drink ketones is you get satiated. In other words, you don't get as hungry. So for most people, Jen, like me personally, I drink, the first thing I drink in the morning before my morning runs and workouts, I drink some of our NAD or some of our ketone products. And I literally do not get hungry, even through full workouts, long runs, do cardio until later in the day. So a lot of our community accidentally intermittent fasts, okay, because they're not hungry. So this has always been a part of Pruvit. A lot of our thought leaders, we've attracted some of the biggest minds in the biohacking, obviously in the ketone space. They just love Pruvit. They're not employed by Pruvit. They're not a part of the, you know, the company or employees. They're world-class thought leaders, but we're the only ketone, the only bioidentical. So they love our science. They're around our community. You learn from some brilliant minds, and they've talked about this for 7 years. But here's the point now. The mainstream has caught up. Intermittent fasting is now today, fact, the fastest growing conversation when it comes to diet, nutrition, and so forth. Keto is still the biggest, right? The keto category is still the most searched, but it's relatively plateaued. It has been for a little while. Still the biggest, plateaued, right? Second being, you know, plant-based. Third being intermittent fasting. But intermittent fasting, you study this stuff, it's the fastest growing. It's like a hockey stick. The trend, right, is going in that direction. It's mainstream. And I bet now that we're just talking about this, you will hear about intermittent fasting sometime this week. Right? You're gonna see some celebrity on your Instagram scroll talking about their intermittent fasting diet. Like you're gonna hear some friend talking about how they just started it. The mainstream is here. So Jen, here's connecting the dots. It is the fastest growing conversation. It is a mainstream conversation. Here's the punchline. Ketones are the only macronutrient that doesn't break a fast. It's the only thing you can consume in that non-eating window that gives you a calorie that doesn't break a fast. Sugar breaks a fast. Fat breaks a fast. Protein in all its forms breaks a fast. Ketones, you can drink as much of this as you want all day long. You biologically won't break a fasting state. And then it gets even better. Not only does it not break a fasting state, it amplifies or multiplies the effects of that fasting state because you're putting more ketones in your body. If you guys caught what I just said, and you don't got to be a scientist to get it, like I'm more of an entrepreneur, right? But you can see the potential of the fastest growing conversation today and us having literally the only tool that you can consume during that window that doesn't knock you out of that fasting benefit and amplifies it. One of one. So that, Jen, was like the first thing where I was like, we got to have a conversation. Like, I see this being massive. I think this conversation, I mean, the ketone conversation itself, 9 out of 10 people still don't understand keto versus ketones versus the diet. Like, that in itself is already a massive opportunity. But the fact that it is the only, the unique, the one of one that is a tool for the number one fastest growing conversation today, I was like, this is huge. So that's number one. The second thing I would say, and this is just more a feeling thing. Some of you may or may not relate to this. I'm not going to dwell on pandemic and the season we all just came out of, but I will say I feel that, let's call it community, is the currency of today. Meaning, it's like the unknown need. It's the thing you don't know you need. Community, connection, getting together, proximity, relationship, people. and the world right now has been so slow of like coming back out of the Zoom and back from behind the FaceTime and like reconnecting. We don't even know how bad we need it until we get it. And then we get it and like our heart's full and we're radiating. And Pruvit has just done such a phenomenal job at community, like we were talking about earlier, that I think it's the thing you can't talk about because it's not cool and nobody knows they need it. But like what I'm seeing is people getting it and receiving it from plugging into just our environment, like minds, positive energy. And it's like, wow, they're lighting up and wanting to share just the community. So I think that's number two, is I just think it's a higher value today. People have put a higher premium or value on that feeling than ever before because it was deprived from us. And then the last thing, and this is really relevant to what's happening today, is all this chatter about recession. I'm not an economist. I don't even watch the media. It's too fear-based, negative, filtered, bias, in my opinion. But I'm also not naive, right? And if recession is going to be the conversation, if all these leading, right, thought leaders are talking about how this is going to be the greatest winter we ever go through, if that's going to be the conversation, here's what I do know. I've done this for 23 years, and I know this channel, community-based marketing, as economy goes down, this channel accelerates by a nature of opportunity. People need opportunity. People need additional income. People need security. And that's been true. I've lived long enough and been here long enough to go through the cycles. So I think this timing of recession, whether it is or isn't, comes or doesn't, is going to create an acceleration, a surge, if you will, in the back part of this year. And I really do believe we here with Pruvit have like the perfect storm. I think we have a technology that people need for their health. We're giving people energy. Energy is life. We're giving people a better fuel source. We're one of one, right? Protected. Still 9 out of 10 people don't even understand the difference. It perfectly fits this intermittent fasting mainstream conversation, the only macronutrient that you can do, and we control and own it. A community that makes people feel and grow and thrive at a time where opportunity, right, prosperity, if you will, is going to be a giant demand. So right now, Jen, these are the conversations Brian and I are having with the leadership of just how do we position the company and the community in a way to accelerate through this time. And going back to where I started, I have ultra positive references to these periods because my company was one of the largest brands, not just in this channel, in the world, through a recession. I saw firsthand what happens if you spin the Rubik's Cube the right way at the right time. Like, I can see the impact you can make. So I know what's about to happen. So I'm super excited, super urgent right now. And we're having so much inspired conversation of how these dots are aligning. So there's other things, but I think if I were just to narrow it down on like, okay, why did I what was that feeling saying? Why did I reach out to you and why did we go on the hike? And obviously these were the things we kind of talked about casually. It was those dots aligning, right? The intermittent fasting and how Pruvit can really be the leader of that entire conversation. Combining with a community that's really special at a time people really, really need that. And at a time where I think opportunity, especially this year and later this year, is going to create an acceleration. I think that's kind of what's creating some of the energy within the community right now. And I think a lot of that, maybe back to you, is what got you lit up and what got you to be here and what we're excited about.
Well, I mean, all of it. And it's so funny. You're infectious because you know what's coming. And I feel that. And even the conversations that we've had putting together this launch team and what we're doing with iFast, I'm seeing the light bulbs going for a lot of leaders who are saying, I resonate with that. That messaging is what people are hungry for. They need community. They understand that intermittent fasting, if they could do it with a tool and they could actually understand and do it well with the hook that you have put together very quickly, I just know that there's something here that people are gravitating towards. And so, Blake, I would ask you, like, iFast, this is one of the things when you talked about it, the 5-day iFast, I was like, all right, I'm interested. Like, explain to me what protocol you guys just put together and then helping create I love the fact that we're taking a $500 million company with the idea, like, there is a run rate to get to $1 billion in sales and I'm sure beyond, but to be able to do that with a launch team with iFast, talk about what iFast and the hook of that is.
Yeah. So obviously iFast is kind of a play on words, right? So iFast with ketones is the name of the product and the program. iFast being short for intermittent fasting, right? But iFast being the brand, iFast with ketones. And we're in a prototype phase. So we move fast at Pruvit. And it's because of what I told you at the beginning. It's all vertically integrated. We're able to do this with all of our R&D team, manufacturing, pick, pack, ship, printing, all in our own, distribution facilities out in Texas. So like the speed at which we move at is very fast. And you saw it firsthand, Jen, from our first conversation. We're like, I think this could be big. And then boom, we already have our prototype phase out and cranking. So guys, yeah, iFast is intermittent fasting with ketones. Exactly what the name says. Intermittent fasting, where we're teaching and educating on a timed eating window, right? We're going to eat within 8 hours, which means we're not going to eat food within the 16 hours, which is super simple to do if you actually think about it, but with ketones. So we're doing it with Pruvit's technology that allows you to get through that 16-hour window and not be hungry, have energy, feel great. You actually feel better with more energy and the time eating. So you're unlocking the benefits of both things. Intermittent fasting in itself has a litany of benefits, right? And that's why it is the fastest growing conversation. You add ketones to it, now you got a multiplied, benefit. And that's our transformation platform, our transformation program. We're in prototype right now. We've already started shipping. We already have our first stories of people that are ranting and raving, which is awesome and amazing when it comes to bringing these two things together, especially, at this time when health is so needed and health is a priority. And the one thing I'll say, and you and I had some conversation on this, and again, this comes from some of my past background and experience, is there's not like a set time frame. It's about lifestyle. And I say that having been on the other side of the fence that, I guess you could say I helped originate challenge marketing, and we had a 90-day challenge, and it was a great idea and it worked well. But we also learned a lesson that by having a fixed deadline, people stop. And, there's so many challenges out there today of 6-week this, 8-week this, 75 this, and that's all great, but that's not real. Like we all really know that like our health is not a one and done. Like our health is not a focus for a period of time and stop. Our health is not on the bus right off. It just doesn't work that way. Like our mission is to teach lifestyle. It is a lifestyle transformation program where we combine the technology with education, with community and support to shift lifestyle. And there is no finish line. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It's not about never missing a day, right? You guys, it's about the journey. Let's be real. We all fall off the wagon. I fall off the wagon, right? We all fall off the wagon. But when you fall off, you got to have the community and the inspiration to push you back on the wagon. So to us, it's just about the streak. what's your streak? How long of a streak can we get? And we kick off everybody with a 5-day accelerator. We kick off your first 5-day streak. That's our goal, is we want someone to start with a 5-day streak, because we know in 5 days they get to experience the benefits, feel what it feels like, raise their energy, get introduced to the technology. And it sounds like a short time frame, and it is, but just that first 5 days, you can start to feel it. But it doesn't end there, right? It's about the streak. What happens after that? Do another 5, right? Do another 10, do 20. How much of a streak can you go for? We got people now that are just like rock stars at their streak. And if you miss a day, no problem, right? Have some skips, just get back on the horse, start a new streak. It's about progress, not perfection, and shifting to lifestyle. So this is the prototype phase. We're in this conversation of iFast. We've already rolled this out, but the conversation I think, Jen, you're getting to is, I think that conversation alone, iFast with ketones, products and program and community and support, getting the benefits of both things together that you can only do here because we're the only ones with the 4th macronutrient that fits as a tool. I think that conversation alone is a $1 billion brand. And you guys, that's coming from someone that's built a $1 billion brand. So I'm not saying it as rhetoric. I'm being very literal. And that is the conversation, Jen, you and I had. I'm like, this could be huge. Now, I also want to say what Pruvit's doing right now and has been doing is working really, really well. We're the category king in ketones. We are leading the educational space in the world. I mean, I spent half my time in my president role working with ministries, regulators, like teaching people the ingredient to introduce this technology to the world. Like, it's still at the starting line there. What we're already doing is already working. We're already in the top 20-ish of the largest companies in the channel, right? We're doing $500 million a year. We did $1 billion in revenue. So we're not a small company, and what we're doing is already working. I think there's going to be a lot of people in the community to get as excited as I am about this intermittent fasting conversation with ketones, but I don't expect everybody to, nor should they. What they're doing is working really, really well. And we have so much education we still need to do on ketones out there. But I got to admit, I light up because my strategic mind sees the dots aligning of a huge community of people to serve and our just unique ability, one of one, to serve it. And, Jen, I think that was the conversation you and I had. And you kind of raised your hand. You're like, I love this. Like, can we lead with this? Can we form a team and pioneer this? And me, like, I'm about the creation process. If I were doing this for money, I would have retired a long time ago. I love the creation, working together with, creative minds, putting together, ideas into reality and watching those make an impact. So the idea of working alongside you and putting together kind of an all-star team, if you will, unique talents and gifts all aligned to kind of co-create this iFast with ketones and prove it, pun intended, within kind of the Pruvit community, I think is going to be just super, super exciting. I think it's a huge potential. I think in itself, it can be like I said, a $1 billion brand in a multi-billion dollar brand. I think there's gonna be a lot of our existing provers that do get excited, but I don't expect everybody to jump on this shift because what they're doing is already working. And I know you shared kind of the passion and the vision of where this can go. And I appreciate you and lining up the people you've already introduced me to and such amazing personalities with awesome gifts coming together. I know someone earlier in our conversation called you guys, it's like the Avengers are assembling, all these superpowers coming together to create a mission. And I'm just happy to work alongside Brian and the company and supporting your guys' excitement and really going out there and doing what I think we can do with all these dots connecting.
Well, thank you so much, Blake. That is what I saw when you and I were able to meet. And then now after talking with leaders, putting this launch team together, I just feel the synergy and people are seeing and feeling and all the dots connecting for others in the industry as well. So it's incredible to see what's coming together. And I'm excited to be able to do that with you. And so I'd love to any final thoughts that you have for our guests today.
No, I mean, I just appreciate today's conversation and hopefully you guys all appreciate just kind of Jen and I letting things flow and sharing what's on our mind and our heart and some of the things we've just been talking about together that we're excited about. And hopefully beyond just hearing it, you're feeling some of the energy and that enthusiasm come through. And if you do, then, our time was well spent here today. But I think we covered a lot of the key points. And this is one of those things where, like, the more you look into it, the more excited you get. But hopefully today's conversation gave you enough to say, hey, this is something that I could see could be big. This is something that you want to align with. And this is a team and a time, right, for you to be able to do something special and make an impact for your family. And by doing that, making a broader impact. But, I don't know, any other, I think we covered a lot. My last closing thoughts, I would be maybe just sharing with everybody. Jen, you and I we've been talking about this word alignment, and for both of us, right? I know that's kind of a theme for the year and a theme for right now. And I think that's the best way to describe what I'm feeling is just an alignment, an alignment with where the world is at and what the world needs, right? Where the world's coming out of, where we're going into, and kind of this window of timing that is opportunity, right? That we should live urgency about, that we if we move, we can accelerate. And this alignment of where the world's at with where the company's at, and I have all the respect for Brian, my partner, our CEO, our founder, because he doesn't have to be in a state right now where he wants to double down, right? Invest time and energy, go to the next phase. Like, the company's a big company doing really well. But I respect that he is willing and wanting to say, look, let's double down on what's working. Let's get aggressive. Let's invest in growth. Let's go do something great. When he's in a position and the company's in a position, they don't have to. So, I mean, I respect that. Those are the people I love to align with. And the company is in a great, unique spot, call it luck or call it strategy or call it divine, whatever your belief system is. Like, we're in an interesting spot where we have that solution at a time where it is the conversation, and at a time where people really need it. So, I mean, I think the alignment of where the world's at and where the company at is something special. Jen, I know what you felt is that aligned really well with where you're at as a person and what you were looking for kind of on your journey and your career, where you're at in your life. And hopefully for anybody that chooses to listen to our conversation today, whether it be watching us or listening to us and whatever you're doing, hopefully this is finding you at a point in your life where the timing is right and it feels aligned for you to take a step, work with some amazing people, have some fun, do something meaningful and impactful. And yes, go find prosperity and ignite some purpose and all of those things for you and your family. I mean, that's what this is about. That's the door. But through doing all of that, actually power a movement that can make a meaningful impact, because that's kind of the mission that we're on. And hopefully you find the same timing and same feeling and same alignment in your life. And if that is the case, don't question that feeling. You got that feeling, you just go. And it's amazing what can flow when you make that decision. So, Jen, thanks for your time. Thanks for you being you. I'm super excited. And hopefully our conversation today helps with the team you're putting together and what we're creating together. And we'll be able to look back and see this conversation and this idea ends up creating a multi-billion-dollar movement, not about the numbers, but because of the ripple that those numbers mean and the transformations we're going to make and the solutions we're going to bring. So thanks for your time today.
Oh, thank you so much, Blake. My word for the year is alignment. When Brian said that it was his word as well, I was like, wow, there's something very powerful. And you guys, clearly, if you felt something in your spirit today that said, I feel this, I resonate with it, that's something, then reach out, because this could be the thing that unlocks the greatest next story for your life. And we are so grateful and honored to be a part of it. Blake Mallen, as always, you are one of a kind, and honor to be with you today. And thank you for pioneering and doing this, and honor to do it. So thanks so much for your time. Thank you, guys.